Okay, everyone, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me this evening. I appreciate your time and energy. So yeah, tonight I'm going to be talking about the Archives MLIS concentration at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee's School of Information Studies. Before I do that, I'm just going to introduce myself and also introduce another instructor that will have at some point if you do decide to pursue the Archives concentration. So this is me, Sean Hayes. I'm teaching faculty 3 within SOAS, so I don't have my PhD, but just a mix of teaching experience and professional experience as well. So kind of my unofficial title is the Archives Program Specialist. So I specialize within teaching within the Archives concentration and doing outreach and other administrative tasks within the Archives concentration. So here is my contact information. I've already put my email address in the chat. So if you have any questions later on that you don't think to ask tonight, definitely feel free to shoot me an email and I will happily respond to you. So just so we can keep the lines of communication open. Yeah, so here's my education. I got my MLIS from the University of Pittsburgh in 2009, which feels like a long time ago. After that, I worked at the University of Wyoming's American Heritage Center for 6 years. And then I've been with SOAS since 2014. So coming up on 10 years next year, which is pretty exciting. So here are the courses that I typically teach. So our Intro to Archives course, which I'll talk more about later, archival outreach, and also our community archives course. I've taught other courses in the past, but this is kind of my main teaching focus. And here's a list of my research interests, sort of subsets of archives that I like to focus on, both within my teaching and when I do research. So focusing on social justice in archives, community archives, hence the community archives course, and community participation in archives. And I'm also interested in how archives influence identity construction, especially among people in underserved communities. Lately, as an educator, I've really been interested in more about inclusivity in the classroom. So learning about how to create courses that help people of varying backgrounds feel welcome and feel included. So I've been taking some workshops and some courses about that just to kind of round out my educational background a little bit more. So that's definitely another area of interest that I have. And I think that it's a good avenue for really all educators to pursue. Okay, so that's a little bit about me. Next, I'll talk about Dr. Donald Force, who, as I mentioned, is my colleague in the Archives program. So he received his PhD from the University of British Columbia in 2013. He's been at SOAS since 2013, I believe, so a year longer than I have. And here are the courses that he typically focuses on. So one of the MLIS core courses, which I'll talk about in just a little bit, and then focusing on records management, arrangement, and description. Sometimes he teaches archival outreach, and also preserving information media and advanced appraisal. So some of his publications, and his focus is more on records and information management and digital archives collections. So I feel like we're a good complement because I focus on kind of more of the softer, more humanities side of archives, and he focuses more on some of the technological aspects, and that allows us to present a really well-rounded viewpoint of archives. And I'll talk about that a little bit more when I talk about some of the requirements for the Archives MLIS. Before I move on too much, I just want to take a couple of minutes and talk about archives in general, because I don't know how familiar any of you are necessarily with archives. We have students coming to the program who have worked in archives before and have a fair amount of knowledge about them. And then we have students that have maybe only heard of archives sort of peripherally, or have maybe not heard of archives at all. So I'll just talk about archives a little bit, and then we'll go into focusing more on the MLIS program and then the archives MLIS. And then we'll talk about some keys to graduating in a good position to be successful or competitive on the job market. So essentially, archives are institutions focused on making records accessible to the public and into the future. So typically think of that, people typically think of that as being tied into preserving records. And preservation is a big part of what archives do, but archives also engage in processes of selecting which records come into archives, processes related to how archivists share with the public what exactly is in those records that have come into archives, how archives are involved in issues like social justice and supporting community participation and community edification. So there's a lot more to archives than just preservation or archivists, kind of being in the basement and working with dusty boxes, which seems to be the stereotype that I see, especially in publications like the New York Times. It seems like every time there is an article about archives, there's some mention of dust in there. And I think that's kind of funny, but it's also a little bit of a disservice because archives is a very technologically forward profession. More and more archivists are using artificial intelligence to discover what exactly is in records and discover ways to present that information to the public. There's certainly a lot of use in technology when it comes to things like preserving digital records, which is more and more the bulk of records that are created today. And so archivists have had to develop technological tools and other processes to preserve those records. So it's a very sort of technologically advanced profession, and one that has really changed even since I become an archivist in 2009. What's also interesting about archives is I kind of touched on the technological side, but there's also the sort of softer humanities side of archives as well. And again, that's sort of what I'm more focused on. So aspects of archiving that look at things like social justice and how can archival records be used to empower members of society? How can archives be used to empower communities to take back power that has been taken away from them? And that's related to things like community participation, participatory archiving, and eliminating situations in which instead of members of communities being able to represent themselves in archives or in the media or in society, what's traditionally happened is archives have done that, presenting on the behalf of communities. And a lot of times in the past, archives have got that wrong, and that's resulted in communities being misrepresented in archives and in turn in history. And more the archival profession is working to fight that. And again, a key way that archives are doing that is through community involvement in record-keeping choices and giving people the power to represent themselves instead of being represented. And so, of course, tied into that are issues like identity formation, how archives are used to support the formation of community or individual identity, which I think is a pretty powerful thing. If you're able to go into an archive and see examples from your community's past, that can be a very moving experience, and an experience that can really help people feel a sense of belonging and a sense of place within a community or a sense of place within history. So I think it's really wonderful when archives are able to contribute to that and help out people and help out communities in that way. And of course, archives have to address a lot of ethical issues as well. So how do we balance access to records with a person's right to privacy? How do we provide access to records in a way that doesn't harm individual people or communities. So archiving is a very multidisciplinary field, and that's why even after being an archivist for 6 years and teaching about archives for almost another 10 years, I'm still just so interested in archives. And when I refresh my classes every semester, I just love reading about the different trends that are going on in the profession and different issues that archives are addressing and how they're addressing them. So it's just an endless source of fascination for me. And I love being able to take that information and sharing it with my students in the courses that I teach. And I know that Dr. Force feels the same way. So there's definitely the perception out there of archives as being kind of a little bit behind the times, and again, just people in basements working with dusty records. But really, the opposite is the truth, and archives are in the front line of a lot of different and interesting discussions in society. At least every couple of days, I see an article in a newspaper that's related to archives in some way. So there's definitely a lot of correlation between archives and archival issues and what's going on in the world. And I just find that really interesting and really invigorating. Okay, so having spoken my piece about archives, I'll go ahead and talk briefly about the MLIS program in general, and then focus more on the Archives MLIS, which all of you are here to learn more about. So the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee's School of Information Studies offers several different degree tracks and degree programs, but one of them is our Library and Information Science Master's degree. And so this is an accredited master's degree, so accredited by the American Libraries Association. Every 10 years, we get reaccredited, and it's a process, but it's good because it really does hold us to standards, and it's good to have that accreditation process, and I'm really glad that that's something that SOAS participates in. So the MLIS is a degree that has different concentrations within it. And so here's a list of those. Among those are the archival studies concentration. So we also have information organization, information technology, and then a few related to public libraries and school libraries. But no matter what track you choose to take, you have to meet the requirements for graduating with your MLIS. So if you have if this is your first professional degree, then you need to complete 36 graduate credits, and 30 of those must be within the School of Information Studies and within the Library and Information Science designation. If you currently have a master's degree or a doctorate degree in a related field, then you only need to complete 30 credit hours. So you get a discount of 6 credit hours in recognition of your previous academic experience. So within the MLIS focus, there are 4 different required courses. So 501, 511, 571, and 799. So every MLIS student has to take these courses and receive a B or better in order to graduate with your MLIS. Now, if you do pursue the archives concentration, you have to receive a B or better in Information Studies 650, which is the Intro to Archives course that I teach. And I'll talk more about that in just a little bit. And then there is a culminating experience, which is what the Information Studies 799 Research Methods class stands for. So again, just to provide some basics for the MLIS degree, you can complete your MLIS degree completely online, and that's true for the archives concentration as well. So you have a little bit of flexibility as far as if you're living in a different part of the country, or if you have a schedule that maybe doesn't allow you to take in-person classes, then you can take the whole thing online if you would like. And I would say that that's becoming more and more common as the years go by. Okay, so having talked about the overall MLIS a little bit, I'll go ahead and jump into focusing more on the topic of tonight's discussion, which is the archives concentration within the MLIS program. All right, so as I mentioned, you can take the archives program completely online. We have some students that are hybrid students that take some classes online and some classes in person. And every once in a while, we'll have a student who takes all of their classes in person, although, again, that's becoming increasingly rare as time goes by. So earlier on, I talked about how in order to complete your MLIS degree, you have to complete 36 or possibly 30 credit hours. If you want to have the MLIS concentration on your transcript when you graduate, which is typically a requirement for employment within an archives, then 15 of those credit hours must come from classes that are designated as being electives within the archives concentration. And I'll talk a little bit about what those are in just a second here. All right, another thing that you need to do is you need to fill out a quick form that says, yes, I intend to be an archives concentrator. And that's a requirement to have the transcript on or the designation on your transcript. You're free to do that when you apply. You're free to do that, after your first semester or the semester before you graduate. It's really up to you. Another requirement, which I've already touched on, is our Information Studies 650 course. And this is a required course for students wishing to receive the archives designation. So again, I teach 650. We usually offer it on-site and online every semester. And 650 is a 14-week-long overview of the archives profession. So essentially, every week, we talk about different aspects of archiving. So we start with what is an archive and what are records. And then we start kind of going down the list. We talk about records management. We talk about appraisal, arrangement and description, access, analog preservation, digital preservation, and so on down the line. Then we also talk about issues like legal and ethical issues, personal archiving, social justice in archives, and community archives. So it's a pretty comprehensive view of the archives profession and the different activities that the archives profession engages in. And so the coursework supports that sort of overall view of the archives profession that we provide to our students. So I'll go ahead and switch over to looking at the curriculum for the archives concentration, and I'll talk about that just a little bit for the next few minutes or so. Okay, so here's some application information. I won't go over that. I'll definitely encourage you to check out the SOAS website or to contact me if you want more information about administration. I can definitely help you with that. So again, 36 credit hours for the MLIS, and then 15 of those need to come from the archives concentration. Okay, so the required courses, again, for the MLIS, as I mentioned, you need to get a B or better in those required courses. And you also need to get a B or better in Information Studies 650 if you want to receive the archives concentration. So essentially, it's a 5th required course for archives MLIS students. There is a thesis option, which is kind of increasingly rare. Usually students only do that if they're planning on pursuing a PhD, but that's an option as well. And then to look more at the electives and requirements for the archives concentration, which we have listed here. Okay, so I mentioned 650, which is a required course. And then beyond that, we have what we call foundational courses. So in order to graduate with your archives concentration, you need to take at least 2 of these 4 courses. So these are the courses that we feel provide foundational, hence the name foundational courses, knowledge to archive students. So sort of the real meat and potatoes of archives that every student graduating with archives is going to be expected to have some kind of background in. So we have our arrangement description, archival outreach, preserving information media, and advanced appraisal. And then on top of that, we have our elective courses, and you can count a maximum of 6 credit hours from these courses to your your Archives MLIS. So these are courses that are related to archives, but not in as a direct manner as our foundational courses. And these tend to be a little bit more specific than the foundational courses are. So you can take a course just about metadata. You can take a course just about digital libraries. You can take one of the topics courses, which would be the community archives course that I teach. You can take information literacy instruction, which gives you the skills to go into a classroom or go in front of the public and tell participants how to use and read primary sources, which is something that archives are kind of increasingly expected to do these days. But a maximum of 6 credit hours from within this bucket of courses can count towards your Archives MLIS. Now, if you want to take all of these 4 courses, that's perfectly fine. There's not a cap on how many foundational courses you can count towards your Archives MLIS, but there is a cap on how many elective courses within the Archives MLIS that you can count towards your concentration. So what I really like about this setup is that it provides you with a fair amount of flexibility. So really beyond Information Studies 650 and 2 of these courses, you can essentially choose what courses you would like to take to meet your 15 credit hours that you need for the archives concentration. So if you, for instance, take preserving information media, and that leads you to be more interested in metadata or digital libraries, then you can sort of build on your knowledge that you receive in preserving information media and go ahead and take those courses, or technology issues and archives. So it's a nice mix of providing students with the knowledge that Dr. Forrest and I feel they're going to need in order to be successful on the job market, but also allowing students to pursue their interests and pursue the courses and educational experience that they are interested in taking. And again, we offer these courses both online and on-site. We can't offer every course online and on-site every semester, so we try and have a nice rotation so that we make sure that we're offering courses in a variety of formats within a given academic year. And that way we can, again, as much as possible, allow students to take the class that they want and the method that they want. So again, just a little bit of flexibility built into the program to allow students to have the educational experience that they want and that is, of course, most convenient to them. Okay, so I talked about needing to take 15 credit hours within the archives concentration, and then another 12 credit hours within of required courses for the overall MLIS. And so what's great about that is it leaves you some leftover credit hours. So that brings you up to 27 out of the 36 credit hours that you need to complete. And so you can use those 9 sort of extra credit hours to take more archives courses if you want. You can take courses in public library or another MLIS concentration, and you can even take courses outside of SOAS. So if you're interested in, history or a field related to your MLIS, then you can take courses from those schools as well. So again, it's a really nice mix of structure and flexibility, and it does provide students with the ability to take courses that they're interested in, how they want to take them, again, as much as possible. I see we have a question in the chat, and I will just go ahead and finish my discussion, and then I'll be sure to answer all of your questions. So I'm not ignoring you. Okay, so what I'll do next is go ahead and talk about some of the keys to success that I've seen based on my almost 10 years of experience now at SOAS. And the first one that I'll talk about is something that I already touched on, which is the courses that you take. And ideally, the courses that you take as an MLIS student, as an archives concentrator, should match your interest in archives. So if you're interested in a particular aspect of archiving, then as much as possible, you should try and take courses that meet that or will provide you with that educational background. So again, if you're really interested in focusing on preservation within archives, then you'll probably want to take preserving information media and courses like electronic documents and records management, digital libraries, metadata, and technology issues. If you want to learn more about archival appraisal, then you obviously want to take advanced appraisal and make sure that you include that within your degree.
Time.
Okay. So you definitely want to make sure that your courses match what you want to sort of get into or be involved with in archives as much as possible. Another course that I'll talk about a little bit more is our Information Studies 759 course, which is our fieldwork course. Looks like it's loading. Okay, so here is the description for that course. It's 1 to 3 credit hours, and you receive 1 credit hour for every 50 hours that you intern at an archive in a semester. So students typically take all 3 credit hours and finish 150 hours in a semester. And this is a valuable course to take because it provides you with the next key to success that I'm going to mention, which is professional development. So as you're progressing through your MLIS and through your archives concentration, making sure that you are getting experience working with archives and developing as a professional as much as possible, because those are the things that are going to separate you from other people that are also graduating with archives degrees and going into the job market at the same time you are. And so fieldwork is a really great way to get that experience and also receive credit hours for the work that you do in an archive. And a lot of fieldwork sites are paying students now. That's kind of become the norm within the profession. So you get to earn a little bit of money as well. And not only is fieldwork great for getting professional experience and professional development, but it's also a great way to network. The archives profession is fairly small. A lot of people know other people. And if you go and volunteer and work at an archive for a semester and you do a great job, then that is going to put you in a position where someone who may know someone that's hiring or someone that may be hiring themselves may be able to put in a good word for you with whoever is hiring. I actually just got an email from a student yesterday who has a job at the University of Minnesota, and she said that the main reason that she got that job was because of the field work that she had done at another archive in Minneapolis. That just really illustrated to me how useful field work can be for students that are able to take it, just because of the professional development, but also for the networking that's involved. We also offer a program that's called Alternative Summer Break, and that's where you agree to work for an archive or with an archive for a minimum of 60 hours over the course of the summer. You don't receive credit for that, but it is a great way, again, to just get a little bit of experience and do a little bit of networking. a few times in the past, we've had students do alternative summer break at an institution and then go ahead and complete their fieldwork at that institution and stay involved with them in that way. So you can definitely turn your alternative summer break into a fieldwork if you have a good experience. Some other ways that you can get professional development is by going to conferences and workshops related to archival issues. The Society of American Archivists has an annual conference every year, and a lot of the different regional archival organizations like the Midwest Archives Conference will have smaller conferences as well. And those are great opportunities to learn more about archives, to hear different presenters talking about archives, and to also do some really valuable networking and get to know people and talk with them maybe between sessions. So that is a really useful thing to do as well. And then for...
Okay, well, I'm hoping Daddy brings them.
And then for workshops, it's obviously a little bit more lower key than a big conference, but it's also a great way to meet people who might be interested in similar topics that you are. So if you go to a workshop about preserving records, then that's a good way to meet other people that are also interested in preserving records and not only learn from them, but also get to know them and do a little networking as well. So professional development can be so important if you are able to engage in it. We realize that not everyone can take field work because a lot of people, have to go to school and take care of family members and of course work. But if it is something that you can engage in, then it can be really useful and help you separate yourself from other applicants on the job market. One other thing that I'll mention is professional engagement. So I talked about these different archival organizations, such as the Society of American Archivists, the Midwest Archives Conference, and so on. And being involved with these organizations can be a great way to get engaged with the profession and stay engaged with the profession as well. So that's my third key to success. So we talked about courses and coursework and making sure those match what you want to do as an archivist. We talked about professional development through field work and alternative summer break and going to conferences and workshops. And the third key is professional engagement through archival organizations. So a lot of these different archival organizations, such as the SAA, have different subgroups called sections or roundtables. And again, these are often related to specific issues within archiving. So, there's a section that focuses just on Indigenous American records within archives and how those should be taken care of. So it can get really specific, but if you are able to become an officer in these sections or roundtables or just participate in online discussions, that's a great way to do some networking and also, again, learn more about the profession and sort of the different issues that the profession engages with. So, yeah, again, I realize that not every student has, the bandwidth and the ability to do these kinds of things, but we do encourage students to do them as much as possible. We do provide a scholarship each year for students that are presenting at conferences. We can give you some money to help you pay for your travel and your expenses related to that conference. And every couple of weeks, I send out what I call the Archives Program News email, where I detail sort of the different opportunities that are out there. So it may be workshops going on, it may be scholarships to go to conferences, it may be potential sections that students can join and get involved with. And that's just a way to help students be aware of the different opportunities that are out there, because, if you don't know what's out there and what's available, then it's hard for you to pursue those things. And so I see an important part of my role within SOAS is to help students be aware of ways that they can, seek to better themselves and be more employable in the job market when they graduate. Because essentially that's what I feel that we're here for. We're here to provide you with the archival knowledge that you'll need to be a professional, but also to provide you with knowledge of the different opportunities out there to that you can take advantage of, hopefully to help yourself succeed and become successful on the job market. And I fairly frequently I hear updates and emails from students saying, "Hey, I got this position. Going to SOAS really helped me," and it makes me feel good because it makes me feel like I'm doing my job well, and it makes me feel like SOAS is doing the job of supporting students and helping them be successful when they graduate and when they go out into the profession. So again, just thinking about these three keys and being mindful of them as you move through either your MLIS or your archives concentration will definitely be beneficial for you in the future. Okay, so that's all I have. I know that was quite a bit. So looks like we have our question here. Do some of the elective courses? Yes, so all of the archives courses that you take count towards the 36 credit hours. So yes, they will. They're just sort of a kind of a bucket within the MLIS program that you need to take in order to receive the archives designation within your transcript. Okay, how early should we pursue an alternative summer internship? They usually don't take too long to set up from my experience. So I would probably say towards the end of spring, you'll want to start thinking about where you might be interested in going. And there's actually an application that I'll have you fill out that provides me with some information about you and what you're interested in and where you might want to end up completing your alternative summer break at. So I would say, yeah, towards like the middle or end of spring. Okay, so Edward asked, how long does the MLIS degree program typically take to complete? That really depends on you as a student and what you feel comfortable doing. I think you have a maximum of 7 years to complete it, but typically I would say students are able to get through it within 2 years. So 36 credit hours, if you take 9 credit hours over 4 semesters, that's usually a pretty manageable course load for a lot of students. But again, it just kind of depends on other things that you have going on. Like I said, I know some people have to work, they have family members to take care of. And you definitely don't want to get in a situation where you're taking on too much and you start to struggle in your classes, and that can result in some negative repercussions. But I would say typically 9 credit hours a semester is a fairly typical workload. So again, over 4 semesters, and you can even speed things up more if you take courses in the summer, which we also offer. Okay, so Samuel asked, how rare is it for someone to be hired for an archivist position without the archive concentration listed on their degree? I would say pretty much every job announcement for archives that I see mentions wanting to have some kind of specialization in archiving. So just based on what I've seen, I would say it's pretty rare. However, you can get hired at public libraries even if you have the archives concentration. So I've seen some students who do get the archives concentration, but then they end up being hired at a public library and working in a non-archival position. So not having the archives concentration will prevent you from getting an archives job, but having the archives concentration will not prevent you from getting a non-archival job at a public library. So you can kind of go one way, but not the other. Okay, I'm going to apply for the MLIS Double. Would you recommend the archives concentration to go along with it? My goal is to work in a music library or as an orchestra librarian. Yeah, I would say that if you are interested in working in an archive that is related to an orchestra, then you would want to have the archives concentration. If you're not working in a job that doesn't have some kind of archival aspect to it, then it's probably not as necessary that you have the archives concentration. And I will also say that you can take archives courses and not necessarily complete the concentration as well. So I have a lot of students who take 650 just because they're interested in archives and they want to learn about archives, and not necessarily because they plan on being an archivist in the future. And maybe they take 650 and change their minds, but you can definitely take archival courses and not pursue the concentration. I will note that the Milwaukee Symphony Orchestra just started an archive of their own, finally, after all these years. And we had one of our fieldwork students actually be involved with sort of the first steps of that archive. So developing policies and working with, I think it was a public relations person there to get the archives off its feet. And it sounds like it was just an incredibly rewarding and beneficial experience for that student. So, okay, what are SOAS's top 3 research areas? I would say certainly archives is one of them. We have a strong information technology program now, and I would also say that our school library program seems to be growing more and more every semester and every year. So those are probably the top 3 that I would think of just off the top of my head. The other concentrations within the MLIS tend to be smaller than archives and school library, and I know that there's a lot of interest in our IT masters as well. So I would say that those are the big ones. Okay, if we take courses outside of information studies, do we have to have it approved by the other department? Honestly, I don't want to say either way on that because I'm not entirely sure. I think there's a fair amount of flexibility as far as which courses you can take. If you can send me an email reminding me to find out the answer to that for you, I can contact our senior advisor within SOAS, just so I make sure that I'm telling you the right information. Actually, I will take a picture of this question with my phone and make sure that I follow up on that with you. So I'm gonna have to follow up with you on that one, Amber, because I'm just not sure, and I don't want to give you bad information. Okay, are there any other questions that you have? Oh, I see a couple more. Okay. Is it possible to learn how to start building an archive from the courses in this program? Yes, definitely. So especially Information Studies 650 provides sort of the general overview of the archives profession, and you could use a lot of what we talk about in that class and devote that knowledge to starting an archive. And then as you take more advanced courses, like more 700 level courses, you just kind of expand on that knowledge and develop it even more. So yeah, I would honestly say that I think our graduates could go into an archive that doesn't go into an institution that doesn't have an existing archive and start an archive from scratch. Like I said, that's essentially what one of our fieldwork students did last semester. And it sounds like, the archive is definitely on the right track now. So I would say the answer to your question is yes. I'm interested in cultural heritage management. Are there any faculty who specialize in that? I guess I'm not quite sure what you mean by cultural heritage management. I would certainly argue that archiving is a form of cultural heritage management. A nation's sort of memories and culture are often encapsulated within archives. So it seems like your archives would be related to that field. As far as specific faculty, I'm not quite sure. What you might do is go to SOAS's faculty and staff directory, and you can filter it by professors, and you can look at their research interests and see if there are any research interests that really match what you're looking for, and find out if there's more of a direct connection that way, because I'm just not familiar enough with the other research interests that other faculty members have to answer that question, Edward. One thing that I'll also recommend is if you see a course that you're interested in and you want to learn more about, whether it's Information Studies 650 or any other course within the SOAS catalog, feel free to find out who teaches that course and send them an email and ask for a syllabus. And that will provide you a lot of the details that you might be interested in. So Edward, perhaps that's something that you could look at, is if you find a faculty member whose research interests match what you're looking for, see which courses that they take and potentially ask for a syllabus or other information. Okay, are there any other questions? Okay, so as I mentioned at the beginning, my email is in the beginning of the chat, and I'll just drop it in again right here. So definitely feel free to let me know if you think of a question that you didn't ask tonight, and I'll be more than happy to get back to you. I can also send a link to this presentation as well, so you can view it again if you'd like. But yeah, I just want to say again that I certainly appreciate your time, and I want to thank you for attending tonight. And yeah, definitely let me know if there are any questions that I can answer for you. And happy Halloween for those of you that are into Halloween as much as I am. This is really my time of the year, so I'm a big Halloween person, and yeah, I'm just really excited to have Halloween going on. It makes the shortening days feel a lot more tolerable. So, all right. With that being said, we will go ahead and call it a night. Thank you again so much for joining, and definitely feel free to stay in touch.